welcome to Eagle News International Australia Oceania. I'm Shane Reyes from Sydney, bringing stories from Australia, New Zealand and Papua New Guinea. These are the headlines. Greater Sydney enters another lockdown. South Australia falls back into coronavirus lockdown cycle. Brisbane extends 3-day lockdown for another 24 hours. Townsville and adjacent areas in lockdown after increase in COVID-19 exposure. Recreational fishing in Western Australia strengthens family connections. And Papua New Guinea's National Museum and Art Gallery celebrates International Museum Day. We kick off with some coronavirus updates in Australia. This week unfolded the appearance of new disease variants causing a multitude of new locally acquired cases that spread rapidly through several states and territories in the country. The state of New South Wales is not spared, with Greater Sydney having to increase COVID-19 restrictions once again in an attempt to control the rapid spread. Our Sydney correspondent Donabel De Los Santos can share more details. Donabel?
For the past months, Greater Sydney was able to maintain a few numbers of recorded COVID-19 cases. However, due to sudden huge spikes of COVID-19 towards the end of June, a 2-week lockdown was implemented in Greater Sydney. On June 26 at 6 p.m, new restrictions were applied to all of those located across Greater Sydney, including the Blue Mountains, Central Coast and Wollongong. This means that every individual will have to stay home unless an essential reason is provided. There are now only reasons for residents to leave their home: shopping for groceries, medical or compassionate care, exercising outdoors in no larger than groups of 10, and essential work and study where it cannot be done at home. Mandatory use of face mask is required in all indoor non-residential areas, must be worn most especially on public transport, as well as simply waiting at the platform, bus stop or ferry wharf. Other areas include shopping centres, supermarkets, salons, parlours, bank branches and post offices. For essential workers, face masks will need to be worn in workplaces. The number of visitors in a household has limited to 5 guests. As for social distancing, there should be a 4 square metre distance between each person in all indoor and outdoor settings. As of June 28, weddings are to be put on hold and only 100 people may attend a funeral. According to the Minister for Health and Medical Research, the 2-week lockdown will end on Friday, July 9. It is still unknown whether this 2-week lockdown may potentially be extended. However, the people of Greater Sydney are continually hoping to once again be free of restrictions in the near future. From Sydney, Australia, I'm Donabel De Los Santos, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Donabel. We hope that Sydney-siders are able to stay well and positive in these challenging times. South Australia has also been into another lockdown cycle, allowing the state government to closely monitor the COVID-19 cases and exposure sites. This is an effort to stamp the new outbreak as soon as possible. Eagle News correspondent Aubrey Assagnon has more on this story. Aubrey?
With the arrival of a new variant of the coronavirus, South Australia is once again taking precautions to stave off disaster. The government has also placed restrictions on travellers entering the state from other parts of the country.
Beginning with an outbreak in Sydney that spread to other states, South Australia moved quickly to prevent the outbreak from spreading here. Governing authorities implemented a hard border closure with Queensland, New South Wales, Northern Territory and Western Australia. In a mad rush to an outbreak of the Delta variant, all residents of each affected state are prevented from entering South Australia, with only local returning residents, people relocating to South Australia, and those escaping domestic abuse are allowed to enter the state.
As the pandemic continues to progress with no end in sight, South Australians continue to comply with COVID-19 regulations, such as using the QR code system for contact tracing and self-isolating when necessary. However, hints of discontent and frustration become more prevalent, which is evident at many Australians' unwillingness to receive the COVID-19 vaccine, resulting to a vaccination rate of only 4% for all of Australia.
The state has also re-implemented various social restrictions on activities and gatherings. The total number of people at venues were once again reduced to 1 person per 2 square meters, with face masks declared either mandatory for high-risk venues or strongly encouraged as in the case of public transport. A maximum of 10 people is allowed within residential venues.
With the end of the pandemic far away, especially with the low vaccination rate throughout the country, the people of South Australia are once again forced to adjust to the same restrictions as before. With the state borders opening and closing due to the changing nature of the pandemic, the locals just need to wait for this to finally end. Reporting from Adelaide, Australia, this is Aubrey Sanyon. Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Aubrey. May all South Australians stay strong and vigilant. Moving on to Queensland. Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk declared a 3-day snap lockdown from the 30th of June to the 2nd of July in the affected local government areas to prevent further spread of COVID-19. While many already eased restrictions as planned, the lockdown is being extended in areas of Brisbane and Moreton Bay for another 24 hours. Let's hear more from our correspondent in Brisbane, Mia MACAPAGAL. Mia?
The surge of COVID-19 cases saw Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk to order a 3-day lockdown that took effect from 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the 29th of June, to 6 p.m. on Friday, the 2nd of July. However, the continuous daily case count instigated a 24-hour extension to this lockdown in Brisbane and the Moreton Bay region. The City of Brisbane and its surrounding local government areas, or LGAs, implemented a 3-day lockdown where residents are only permitted to leave their homes under 4 essential reasons: to purchase essentials, work or study if unable to do so from home, exercise, seek healthcare, or provide care and support. Further restrictions were in effect. Restaurants and cafes were limited to takeaway service. Household visitors were reduced to 2 at any time, and most importantly, masks were to be worn when leaving homes. On the final day of the 3-day lockdown, Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk announced an extension for Brisbane and Moreton Bay. However, lockdown was lifted for the remaining LGAs. The additional 24-hour lockdown were vital in the continuous efforts of contact tracing to establish links among the current active cases and clusters. The lockdown concluded for all the LGAs in southeast Queensland at 6 p.m. on Saturday, the 3rd of July. Stringent restrictions are implemented for the next 14 days. The mandatory wearing of face masks, checking in at every facility, social distancing, and limitations on gatherings are in continuous effect. Queensland governing authorities continue to urge the importance of following mitigating measures to curb virus transmission. Reporting from Brisbane, Australia, this is Mia MACAPAGAL, Eagle News, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Mia. We hope that these collective efforts will yield positive results soon. Meanwhile, the COVID-19 outbreak has also spread in the central Queensland region. Thus, the city of Townsville also underwent lockdown procedures as a response. Let's hear more from Eagle News correspondent LORRIE Kate Salomon for the details. Go ahead, LORRIE.
On Tuesday, June 29, Southeast Australia, including Townsville City, Magnetic and Palm Island, commenced a 3-day lockdown after an unvaccinated woman from Sandgate, who tested positive for the coronavirus, traveled through Townsville and surrounding areas.
Infected with the Delta strain of COVID, a 19-year-old woman from Sandgate traveled to Townsville visiting Magnetic Island before returning, sparking a 3-day lockdown for Townsville City, Magnetic Island, and Palm Island, with the lockdown in place until 6 p.m. Friday, the 2nd of July. Residents within the breached areas will once again apply themselves to strict apprehension levels until the local governments confirm the regions are free from any signs of the virus spreading. Residents within affected areas will be unable to leave home except for essential education and work purposes, obtaining healthcare services, including receiving a COVID-19 vaccine, essential care and support services for vulnerable family members, essential shopping within local communities, and exercise outdoors with no more than one person that is not in your household in your local community. Mandatory use of mask is required when leaving your home for essential services. Anyone found not wearing a mask will be faced with a $200 fine. All Magnetic Island residents, as well as anyone that may have taken part in the Townsville Sunday markets on the 27th of June, along with anyone else within the region that are experiencing flu-like symptoms, are being encouraged to get tested as soon as possible.
It is advised that should any of the COVID symptoms persist, they are to stay home, call their doctor, and await further instructions. Because of the ongoing pandemic and the new Delta strain, health and government officials all the more encourage Australians to adhere to the COVID-19 safety regulations. Reporting from Townsville, Australia, this is Lori Kate Salomon, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Laurie. May the easing of restrictions bring relief to the residents there. After the break, we'll hear how recreational fishing in Western Australia strengthened family connections. And join us as we explore the celebration of International Museum Day at Papua New Guinea's National Museum and Art Gallery. All these stories when Eagle News International Australia Oceania returns. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Perth, Western Australia is one of the country's bustling coastal cities, and the winter season can't stop families from getting to the waters and trying their hands in recreational fishing. Here to tell us more is Eagle News correspondent Jenilyn Desby. Take us there, Jenilyn.
After a busy and tiring week, we also need to relax and unwind. While some people use their free time on shopping, meeting up with friends, and watching movies, many of us enjoy fishing. It is a common recreational activity here in Australia, not only for dads, but also for the whole family.
Fishing is a very productive pastime because while we are enjoying this activity, we also get something to eat. And that is if we can catch a fish. In Western Australia, there are lots of beautiful beach areas wherein we can do fishing. These are the Hillaries, Coogee, Basselton, and Albany to name a few. If you are in the Metro Perth area and you prefer freshwater fish, the famous Swan River is a very good option. These rivers and seas are rich with various fishes and seafoods, but always be mindful about the rules, guidelines, and laws being implemented regarding recreational fishing. Fishing is fun and enjoyable, especially if we will do it together with our family and friends. However, fishing also comes with responsibility to respect the ocean and its resources. Reporting from Perth, Australia, this is Jenilyn Desby, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Jenilyn. It's wonderful to see families enjoying the outdoors and mindful of the safety protocols. Finally, in Papua New Guinea, the National Museum and Art Gallery is celebrating International Museum Day this week. Our Port Moresby correspondent Echo Hortaleza Kinola is here to walk us through. Echo?
Due to different workloads and various commitments, the International Museum Day supposedly celebrated last May 18th was put to hold. Although delayed, it was still commemorated in Papua New Guinea's National Museum and Art Gallery located at Waigani, Port Moresby. It was indeed a celebration. This year's theme is all about the future of museums, recover and reimagine. The aim is to retrieve and revive details and stories that were once the highlight of Papua New Guinea's cultural beliefs, practices, and pave their way to a wider audience. The first part of the program was a traditional dance by the Papua New Guinea natives whom they called the Sing Sing group. Dr. Andrew Motu, the director of the museum, talked about the importance of the museum and its wide range in preserving the place. They carry out museum exchange programs through collaborative officers' knowledge and further training. They also produce national collections through research works. Scientific articles were also published in recognized journals. Conservation awareness was also tackled during the video presentation, focusing on the protection of the vulnerable species and to conserve natural habitats, particularly along the long altitudinal gradients from lowlands to high elevations in Papua New Guinea. Dr. Motu also highlighted the two-in-one bilums and genders, importance and symbol.
And so our theme for this year is about the future of museums. That touches us at the core. Where are we going? How might we go? And what kind of ideas can you tell about going? So I decided that speaking from the perspective of an anthropologist, for instance, you could weave a narrative about the future and the past through the bilum. And that's what I try to do, bring in ideas about gender, about time, about mathematics.
Among the guests who extended their pleasant greetings was Japan's first secretary, HIROMITSU IWAMOTO.
I'm very privileged to be here to have a glimpse of this, the whole activities of the museum. Myself is also a historian, and I have gathered many information from this museum, and that this is a center for all the researchers of history, anthropology, archaeology, and as an international researcher, I'm very happy to see the museum holds an event like today, and I hope this museum will keep on thriving on the wealth of those cultural heritage and properties.
The International Museum Day celebration was a huge success. The event was a significant day for the Papua New Guineans to be aware and to appreciate the stories of the past, present, and the emerging. Reporting from Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, this is Echo Hortaleza Quinola, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Echo. That is truly a wonderful celebration. And that concludes today's program. Thank you for watching Eagle News International Australia Oceania. Join us again next time as we share more stories from our bureaus across Australia, New Zealand and Papua New Guinea. Visit our websites on eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on twitter.com/eaglenews and on facebook.com/eaglenews. Stay safe, stay strong and take care everyone. From Sydney, Australia, I am Shane Reyes, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.